to the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design. In faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77, where your journey's prime.
Welcome to today's episode of the Route 77 podcast. We're diving into a topic that touches many of us deeply: contentment in singleness. How do we find joy and purpose in our single status? Stay tuned as we explore this together. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I am Natasha, your host, and I am here with Monique.
Hello.
But no David.
No, he hasn't been on lately.
Yes, he's been a bit busy.
Excuse is excuse. We're never busy. We have all the time in the world.
This is our first time in a while that we've been recording at the normal time, though.
Yes, because of everything with Amber.
He's just dealing with final exam prep.
Okay.
So on a bright note, Amber's doing much better. The kidney stone is miraculously gone.
Yeah.
The tube has been taken out of her, and she's back home, healing up, doing just fine.
Yes, it totally a miracle because the doctor went in to go and remove the kidney stone and went, I can't find it. 12 millimeter kidney stones do not disappear.
No.
Just so you know that. Not only do they not disappear, but they don't also shrink. So from 12 millimeters to 7.5 millimeters to, I don't know where it is.
So yeah, all that's in a positive.
Yes.
Positive. So
Very much. And then we were able to go to the Mercy Me concert. That was a blast. It was so great. We did not buy t-shirts or CDs or sweaters.
no.
At all. And I haven't been listening to the CD.
Monique didn't buy a sweater, and I didn't buy a CD.
We're not lying. And
you
you didn't buy t-shirts.
did.
Oh, did you buy a t-shirt?
Oh.
I got the...
Don't have the concert date on it. Because I've always
that's
wanted.
right.
I've seen people at those and never have been to a concert. So now I had a purpose to have.
I got the I Can Only Imagine t-shirt because I love that song. And I got the Who Am I to Not Worship You?
I would have taken one of each, but I had to bank down.
And not only that, but it was US
It was
James.
the
So
US exchange.
once you got the bill, it's just like, hey, I'm glad I stopped it when I did.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in the hype of everything in the moment. You're like, I want one of everything.
Because you're just so excited. It's just like, no, stop. Relax. It's all good. You don't need that much. For most of the time, we wear uniform. So it's only on Sundays that we can actually wear a t-shirt. So
Exactly. It's just very few times that I don't wear either overalls or taekwondo uniforms.
No.
Few main.
So I wear white shirt because that's what I'm like. I'm where I am not advertising.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, and the shirts are really nice and soft.
Yeah, they're
I like
comfortable.
that. They are.
Yeah, and the sweater's nice and comfortable too. Yeah, so it's been a good week. And
Finally got to celebrate my birthday.
we got to celebrate Monique's birthday finally.
Only 2 weeks. 2 weeks late.
We went out for breakfast, and then we traipsed on down to Guildford and
Did the
to
VR.
VR.
It was so much fun.
It's worth it if
Yeah.
you want something fun to do, something different. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Grab a friend because you can do it by yourself, but it's so much more fun to shoot orcs with the bow and arrow when you've got
When you have someone with you.
somebody with you. Because they come fast and furious
Yes,
after you
and
get
it's
to it.
meant
Like,
to do.
I can't keep up my arm.
So yeah, we did that, and we also did the escape room and a VR escape room, and that was pretty cool too.
That was a lot of fun. That was actually, I found the VR escape room way more fun than the normal escape room.
in real life one.
I don't know what it was about it, but it was, of course, we were shooting at dragons.
Yeah,
You can't do that. In the
and
real
it's like a different style of
one.
that, in a way that it's hard to like. Just like there's some things that will be more unique to in real life that maybe is texture and things like that. This had other things that you couldn't really do in real life practically, and so it was fun.
Like picking up things, like you were picking up things, but you weren't feeling yourself.
Yeah,
You couldn't feel the object.
but you're like creating
weird.
like potions and things, and even if we aren't, you wouldn't really do a lot of that type of
No.
combination with liquids in real life wine
No,
because that
no.
would just be
No.
like a mess waiting to happen.
Yeah, that, no, especially when you've got one potion that flips everything upside down,
Yeah,
turns you into a ghost.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yep.
And the two young guys that were on the desk were like awesome.
Yeah. But it was a blast. We were laughing and making all sorts of stupid comments. I'm stepping over babes.
It was really awesome.
Because your body is, no, if you don't step over it, you're going to stub your toes.
Oh, yeah.
But there's nothing there.
Your brain, even though I know the computer eyes that just responds like it's real. It's interesting, like what your brain is receiving versus what you know to be true.
Right.
Like up against each other.
Yeah. It's a bit of a pricey activity. In retrospect, everything is pricey nowadays.
Yeah. But it's not something you'd go like every day.
No.
But it's every other month or something.
Yeah. Once a while, it's just let's do something. Why don't we go do VR today? Because we'll shoot some work.
And just so people know, the Abbotsford one is really good. It's just not open on Sunday. And that's the only day we really have off together. Yeah.
And every now and then you need something to let off steam.
Yeah.
To just, and we're just both, this was so much fun and so much better than just sitting at home on the couch, staring at the TV or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Napping. Although right now, that's a nap.
Napping is good.
My shoulders are so sore from holding, because you're holding this bow.
And so your left arm is completely straight out from your body the entire time you're doing it.
Because you've got all these orcs and things coming out of the woodwork. You've got dragons flying overhead. And if you don't duck, you're going to get yourself killed.
It's called Elven Assassin, and it's available at pretty much all VRs. So it's pretty cool that you can play multiplayer. And usually you can, especially when you get a few more people, you can be like, oh, okay, you grab that, I'll grab this side, and you make like more coordinated attacks. When there's just two people, you're just like trying to keep up with it.
I'll get the dragons. Wait, I can't keep up. There's too many. Oh, look.
It's lots of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
So yeah, we do highly recommend that
as a pastime.
And it's, again, as like single people, we have bringing kids, bringing like, spouses need us at home or like anything. We were just like, let's go do this. And we were able to do it. So just a perk from being a single person is we could just go out and do this type of thing. It's just the two of us. So it's like costs way less than bringing a whole family doing it.
Yep. But they do have birthday parties. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Anyway, so that's just our plug for like interesting things that can be done around town. And wherever you're listening to it, there's probably one nearby. So we got lots of plans. See, as single people, you don't have to be boring.
No, you can make plans. And that's where we're going with this podcast.
Yeah, people are like, why are we talking about your whole entire weekend? Like, when are we getting to that?
When are we going to go up to get to the topic? What is the topic? Contentment.
Yes, contentment. So yeah, like contentment is something that I think we often pay lip service to, but we don't fully embrace it. And I think this is why my ex felt more extreme in this way. But there's this idea that if you accept what is now and embrace it, that you won't get something else later. Like, you'll seem like you're content. Why does everything need to change? Well, you're going, I want to be married, or I want to get a different job, or so there's this kind of this fear.
I poo on that all over the place.
But I would say, I think there's this kind of subconscious fear that if you accept where you are, it's never going to change.
And that is so not true. I can attest to that because when I was living in my condo, I always wanted to live in a house, but I was living in a condo and I came to the realization that I'm actually quite content where I'm at. I don't need to move. I don't need a house. I have garden out on my patio. I have a space all to myself. I can afford where I live. And I was quite happy with it. I had no problems with it. And then all of a sudden God says, now that you have come accustomed to this place, I'm going to move you. Now I have a house. And it wasn't like I was looking for it or
depressed that you weren't.
Or depressed that I didn't have a house or anything. It was just, it would be nice to have a house, but I am okay if I don't.
So I think the biggest thing is that contentment is it's not a circumstance that you're in.
No,
it's like a state of the heart. And so your heart determines your contentment or your joy and things like this. And then I think too, by saying like we're afraid that if we accept something, it will never change. That actually is more of what we call complacency. This is what it is. And
might as well just
make the most of it. And it's not like the attitude, the heart is completely different. It's just, woe is me. I guess this is my lot in life.
Yeah. I guess I'm settling for second best.
Exactly. And for me, like, I spent so long being discontent in singleness. Like just decade almost. Or a decade at least.
Yeah.
That it ruined my single time in my 20s. Like my 20s, I can't say I cannot look back on my 20s and be like, oh man, I really enjoyed my 20s, because there's not a lot of positives that happened in there because of the attitudes that I had.
Say,
And it wasn't, I don't want people to say it's not wasted, blah, blah, blah. I like literally did waste it.
yep.
And that's okay to say, because God can redeem those things, but he's not going to take back the time that you've wasted.
No, you can't go back to your 20s and live it all over again.
No. And so
How much we want to,
God will redeem things
Mhm.
and bring good from them. But if
He is
something
always
has to
working
have been
for-
done wrong in order to be redeemed.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that, oh, it's okay, I did that. But it's something that you repent of and be like, Lord, I was not content in that time. I did not follow your word in that time. I wasted the time that you gave me.
Yeah.
And please, Lord, forgive me for that. And so but God can take those moments and help us to shape our future and to shape the future of other people. So we don't want people to just be like, I wasn't content. I've wasted it all. That's it. I'm done. No, we take it. We come up. Here we are midlife, but we're embracing, we're like being content. We're seeing where God brings us on this crazy journey called life.
Mhm.
And yet we're not, it's almost like when something changes and you're like, oh, in a way, there was the complacency, like even with Taekwondo, before it changed hands to Chang, there was a bit of complacency setting in because you liked the way things were. And when things changed, I had a bad attitude about it originally.
Different from you in that respect, because I was actually finding myself discontented because I felt like I wasn't growing. I knew that I had to do my second degree black belt, and then I kept getting sick and I kept getting discouraged. And then it just felt like I couldn't catch back up. So for me, when things changed, I was sitting there going, I believe this is going to be a good change because maybe I can learn something different.
Yeah. And I agree that it was, and it took me a little while to get there because I like things.
You're
Not
not-
changed. I'm not good. I'm not big on change.
No. So I think that's one of the things with contentment is that you also have to be prepared for change.
And flow with it.
Yeah. 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 I like change. I've been with my one job for 15 years. And if it weren't for the gradual different changes that were happening since the new owners took over, I probably would have left a long time because I liked the old owner and everything was really good and stuff. There wasn't change. We weren't growing.
It was just
The same every day, same old. Now we're getting we get new programs and new ways of doing things. I get a lot of complaints from a lot of people that I'm sitting there I'm learning something new and I'm kind of
And that's like with Taekwondo, some people are still like trying to grapple to, and then still hold on to some of the things that were done a year ago. And yet I actually appreciate all the changes and have been learning to open up to change through this, because it's like change in a safe place, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. You weren't with our church when we went through the change when our old pastor retired and then COVID hit and we got the new pastor just before that time. And there were a lot of people who fell away because they were used to the old way of preaching. But there's something about Justin's preaching where I'm going, I am so thankful to have him as all of them, like Adam and Marcel and Jaden and Jason. Like even Jason was a hard sell because everybody liked the old way we were doing the worship. But now that Jason has come on, our choir went from a smattering of a few people to like it's doubled in size in a year.
Yeah, at least from the original, I would say that it's triple.
Yeah.
Because the original, there was like a few of you, and now
And
it's
that's how it was with the previous person. But Jason was a hard sell. There were a lot of people that were so angry because
And I think I remember there was somebody that had temporarily filled the position that you really liked and had hoped that would get the position.
and he didn't want
And
it.
then, and then they got Jason in and has done a good job.
Has done an excellent job. Yeah. And for me, I kind of fell into that mentality that a lot of people had. No, how they treated these other people, it was so unfair. And I'm just like, not really, because they weren't really trained and they had other jobs and they were always busy and things were thrown together and it was just like last minute. But Jason, that's his job. and he takes time with it, and he does what he needs.
Yeah.
He does a lot of
It's
media
a lot
stuff.
of
He is,
podcast or the
Yep.
sermon as a podcast together.
yep, he's
YouTube and
got
stuff.
that together. He's done the YouTube. During the COVID, we got put on Boxcast, and we were televised. People were watching us from all over the place. So yeah, he has won me over, and he helps me find, if I want to find a song from way back when, he'll let me find it, which I think is really cool too. I want to find this song. He says, "Oh, that's this person." You rock. Contentment and complacency. So there's,
Those are two kind of sides, not the same coin, but say if you were saying like, here's a positive way of doing it, here's a negative way of doing
Right.
it. Like,
So I think we had all really fallen into a sense of complacency, and we've all been kicked out of.
I think we can judge our level of complacency by how we deal with change. And yeah, so God's not
He doesn't
calling
like
us just
complacency.
sitting in there and to do the same thing, like never changing. I think we're a God of change.
It's interesting how you said that, because in today's sermon, Pastor Justin is talking about discipleship, right? And one of the things he was mentioning is how the number of people professing Christians has dropped. In 2001, it was 77.9% of professing. 2024, 49%. That's quite a drastic drop in percentages over a 23-year period. And he mentions because a lot of people are church disciples. We sit in the pews, we go to church, and then we go home, and we never go anywhere else with it.
Yeah. So I think a good verse just a couple of verses to talk, just to illustrate, is Paul talking to the Philippians. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And if people are wondering, that's Philippians 4, verses 11 to 13. So yeah, that's just Paul it's interesting because he's, I've learned the secret of being content. So everybody wants to know the secret of being content. He can do it through the one who gives him strength.
Yep.
And that's God, in case people are wondering, in case you're confused.
I was confused.
Yeah. I thought it was like Barnabas or something.
I thought it was a Paul. Do you think you have to be content with God in order to find yourself content in your circumstances?
I think you have to find yourself, like your contentment within God. But if we can find our contentment with God, within God.
It's a different way
I
to
think
say
the way I say.
just throw there, because you never know if somebody's saying, well, what there's. That's not quite it. Because I don't think God will leave you to be just, I'm a Christian and I'm content with that.
Yeah.
I go to church, I go home, I don't need to do anything else. I'm content with that.
That's complacency.
Is that complacency?
I think so.
No more complacency.
So I think within singleness, there's a very unique to singleness way of being either complacent, discontent, or content with your marital status. I think it's definitely, as I see different people on Facebook groups and things like that, that there's this definite discontent in their life. They're just like, I'm so lonely, or I'm so upset that I'm not married, or why does everybody get married instead of me? And so that is, it's an extreme discontentment, which can definitely affect mental health, as well as a lot of other parts like spiritual health, and it can even affect physical health.
Anxiety, depression.
And some of these are like honest to goodness issues with your body that comes from genetic source, whatnot, or maybe just situations that you go through that are extremely stressful. But there's times I think when we bring it on ourselves, we have to understand, like, just if I went outside in minus 40 with just a t-shirt and shorts, then I cannot really be upset if I get sick.
No. Or frostbite.
Yes. Like I could have done something to prevent it. And so in this situation as singleness, like we're supposed to be content in all things, and that includes in our relationship status. But contentment doesn't mean, oh no, if I'm content being single, God's never going to send me a spouse. But that's like their fear of contentment is that, wait, if I tell God in a sense, I'm okay with being single, gonna be like, okay, I don't have to worry with that person for marriage. But then they're afraid that's what it's going to mean. So I'm just putting out there, like saying that is why I think it's unique to singleness, this specific thing, because we find it so worried
that we're going to be alone for the rest of our life.
Yeah. And that by being content, we're somehow dooming ourselves
To being
to
single
being single
for the rest of our lives.
for the rest of our lives. And so that is, it's also a really improper way of looking at contentment.
Mm.
It's a state of your heart. It's not a circumstance. And God, if he, in his will, brings marriage about for you, he's not going to tell you to be content in all things and then punish you by not letting you get married or something because she's content or he's content. That's good. We don't have to deal with that.
The funny thing with that is that I've had this many times is where people said, it was when I decided to let go of the idea that I needed to get married that I actually found my spouse because you were no longer looking. And so because you weren't looking, the right person for you came about. But if you're looking and you're desperate, that's when you are going to end up making mistakes.
And also, there's no guarantee.
Either way.
If you're desperate, you might find somebody who is also very good and good spouse, but there could be a tendency towards letting things slide. If you say, I'm not going to think about it anymore, that's not a guarantee that God's bringing this. It's just happened for people. The same thing. People would be like, we tried so hard to have kids, and then we're like, oh, we're going to adopt, so we're not going to worry about it anymore or something, and all of a sudden they're pregnant. Yeah. Like, as soon as they stop trying, it happens. Yeah. But again, it's not a guarantee. It's just like anecdotes of people, of trends of things that have been seen. Because my mom was just like going to a wedding as a maid of honor. It was just going to go have fun and don't worry about guys. And that's where she met my dad as the best man. It was just, and so.
They say you can meet your spouse at a wedding.
Yes. Maid of honor, best man.
There you go.
So it was kind of neat. Anyway, but I think too, there can be a false contentment, which is actually complacency.
Yeah.
Which says, I guess I'm never getting married.
I might as well just bite the bullet and
do with what I have. And again, that's complacency. We're like settling for second best or not the good life that we had hoped for.
It's interesting. I had this thought go through my head. A number of years ago when I was still in my fertile stage, I ended up with uterine tumors that were causing me to be severely anemic. And the doctor's like, how are you still alive? There was a time when the doctor told me, he said, there is only one thing we can do with this. You had way too many. You're losing blood all the time. There's only one thing we can do with it, and that's we need to remove it. And it was also to test for cancer too. It was a very scary time in my life. I didn't know about that part. I found that part out later. But the doctor did tell me, he says, because I was still in my fertile stage, I was just like, I'm never going to have kids again. And he said, we can make that happen. It'll be very painful, but we can make that happen if that's what you want. The in vitro kind of thing. And I did go home and think about it because it was one of those things. I always wanted a bunch of children. I only had the one. And I struggled with that. And in the end, because I had a year to make up my mind. And when the year came and went, I had made the decision that it was not fair to Amber, and it wasn't fair to potential child, and it wasn't fair to myself. So I opted to not have in vitro and to just go ahead with the surgery and to be content with that. But it took me a year of wrestling to come to that contentment that I didn't need to have another child. Mm-hmm. That Amber was all I needed and God was all I needed.
Yeah, exactly. And I
imagine if I had a child with everything with Amber and I have gone through.
Yeah, it's just, and you could have forced the issue with biology in a sense.
Yep.
And God may have said, okay, you really want this? I'll allow my life to be conceived.
Yep.
And I think in this one is where our ministry verse really comes into play, which is 1 Corinthians 7:7. I wish that all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift and another has that. And what I like to point out is that when you say, I wish something to people, it's generally a positive thing that you've experienced. Oh, I wish you could try the VR that we went to because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I wish you were here enjoying this like vacation like we are. I wish you could, and whatever it is, there's always people being sarcastic or whatever.
Right.
But if you're genuinely wishing something on somebody, like you're wishing a good thing
Yep.
that you've experienced as a good thing.
Yep.
And it's not, I
Like-
wish you could experience the second best.
If you've experienced a really bad thing or a trauma thing, you would say the opposite. I would not even wish this on my worst enemy.
It's like, so that when
Cool.
when he's wishing that he was single, that's what he was discussing in that specific chapter. Because we have that idea. Somehow singleness is second best.
Right. So he's
He's
not
not
saying,
saying it's like,
I wish you could all just,
he's saying, but he's just saying that there's this gift and there's that gift.
yeah.
Marriage and singleness. Neither of them are, he's
Okay.
just, I wish this positive experience on you, but it's also like both gifts are gifts from God. And you might say to people, I wish that you had enjoyed your singleness or that you could experience the freedom that we have in our singleness.
And and
But it doesn't mean you're like telling them that their marriage is bad.
no, and that's the thing too, is that many people make shots at single people for enjoying their singleness.
Yeah.
Remember that lady who posted the video?
We did that. It was the TikTok. And if you actually watch the video, it's like this TikTok thing that went off about a year ago. And if you actually watch the video through, she's going, I'm tired of feeling bad for being single.
Yeah.
I'm going to embrace that I'm single, not be depressed that I'm 29 and single, and enjoy my life and find the positives.
Right.
And yet, like the conservative Christian like groups were like tearing her down. And it's if we went like, oh, what's so awesome about not having kids in the house, kid age, is that
I can sleep in it.
we can sleep in, we can go out randomly, we have a little more money to spend on things than we would if we had children here.
Yep.
And if you see here, Paul's saying like one has one gift, one has another. We have the gift of being able to have this freedom to go out and do things and to how we spend our money and how we spend our time much differently than married people, and married people with kids have different ways. Different doesn't mean one's better, one's worse.
No.
One's right, one's wrong. It just means different. Two lanes going in the same direction, just different landmarks along. So just
Content.
and I can't even explain to you
What that feels like.
like what that moment felt like when I like I don't even say gave up. I released my desire of marriage and to be a mom. Like I like was holding on to it so tightly that it was like I released that into God's hands, and the joy that I've been able to experience since is like ridiculous because I would not have been able to teach Taekwondo. I would have been like what was happening all the time. Every time I went to church, every time I saw parents, kids, people together, I was just depressed. I was just, this isn't me. I have this pain in me. Why is this not me? This is what it's supposed to be. Why is it not? Why is it not? I can't like actually continue my life until this stuff happens. So I'm just here. And then it's like the moment that I released those two things, which sort of happened at the same time after leaving my ex and stuff, like the burden was gone. And you don't realize that those desires and expectations was actually a burden, but it was.
Oh, isn't that an interesting way to put it? It is. It's a burden. And yeah,
Because it's a sin, because I was holding on to it as if it was gone. It was an idol. And so therefore it was like, just like Pilgrim's Progress. If you haven't read it, go for it. It wasn't like Christian act, because I am a Christian. So he lost his burden at the cross. But like it was sad. You lost the main burden, but you just picked up a few to take with you because you missed having that security on your back or something. And it was just like, yeah, I can't even explain. And I'm really ambiguous in a bad way, but I have ambiguous feelings about whether I get married and maybe be a mom, even if it's like a stepmom or whatever, or have kids. Like I have no preference. I have no pulling in one direction over the other. I'm like, I'm good where I am. If God wants that to change, I'll be open to it. Until that time, I'll do what I think he wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been how I've attacked my schooling. A lot of people go, "Oh, you don't have a plan for this schooling." And I'm like, God has a plan for the schooling. All I know is I'm supposed to be doing this, and he'll figure it out. I've still got a few more years before I actually finish. And who knows what he'll do in that time or provide at the end of that. That's the craziness, is we live in a world that we need to be so goal-oriented. If you go to school, you better have an idea of what you want when you get on the other end. And yeah, I do agree that sometimes people go to school because they think that's what they're supposed to do. And then they end up getting not great marks, and they just get a degree in something they're not super interested in. And then they have all this debt. Yeah, like maybe look at it and be like, hey, am I really ready for university? Do I have a plan in a sense where I really enjoy it? But I don't have a plan for what I'm taking, but I'm really enjoying what I'm taking. When I did originally, when I took my phys ed in education, I didn't, all I wanted to do was be a mom. I had no joy in what I was doing. All I wanted to do was find a guy and get married. I was going to Christian school. The only reason I was not going there to learn the information. I was not going there with the idea that God had a plan. I was just supposed to do what he felt like him calling me to do, because that would have even been better than what I did. So I come out at the end with 2 degrees, which I can thankfully use them now to help in things. But I had no plan open to God to use those things. My plan was get married and have kids. That was the plan.
That was the plan.
And so my schooling then versus my schooling now is 2 completely different entities. I had just as little idea of what I would do after with the degrees as I did then, but I have a different mindset and worldview.
Because now you're doing it to learn.
And I'm releasing the unknown future into God's hands, realizing that he's calling us to things right now. And sometimes we do have a goal, and God's given us an idea. I want to be a doctor. I want to be this. I want to be that. But sometimes God's just calling you at times to not know the outcome.
It could be for this one that you're taking right now.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Conflict resolution. How's that working out for you?
Most exhausting course I've ever taken in my entire life. It's emotionally draining.
But it is teaching you a lot.
But the one that came up, I haven't had a plan of how to attack my courses. I've just been taking the one that came up that I saw. And so for the leadership ones, I had to take the regular intro leadership type of thing, not intro, but the first one, which I did. And then I had zero clue what other one I would take. None of them seemed to pop out at me, but this one, I think this was one of my only options for the semester, and I could have taken it. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm taking that one. And so it's just interesting how, like, next semester's is going to be on the theology of suffering. Again, it was like literally like the only option of all the ones offered in the summer that I could take.
So
and I'm like, but it does really appeal to me. So it's been really interesting to see how this is all coming together and how God's moving in this. And I think even if I don't get a job right out of university that uses my degree, that I benefited within myself, which is actually was my original intent, is that if I can work so hard to get my black belt, I can work at least that hard to understand my faith, which was actually my intent on taking the apologetics. And I'm like, I can't work this hard on something that really doesn't matter in eternity and not work equally, at least equally as hard for something that has eternal value. And yeah, like this coming into schooling with this kind of more contented lifestyle, it just really leaves you open for a lot more change to happen.
Yeah. You have to admit that through your schooling, this started.
Yeah, exactly. The podcast started because of the schooling. It went from
an idea
to just becoming something more tangible.
Going to an apologetics introduction kind of thing, and both of us, because you were sitting,
we weren't even together. It was like the Apologetics Canada was doing their launch event, so it was just like, how did the past year go, and what's coming up in the next year? And I got there late because of Taekwondo, and you were sitting with David, and they were talking about how their podcast came to be and how well it was doing, and then we just both locked eyes.
We do a podcast,
and we're like messaging, Google messaging, Facebook messaging. We need to do a podcast. This person,
it was like You guys are going to have the same light bulb go off at the same time.
Yeah.
I wonder if
There
they
would
would
be sparks flying with breakers going.
Yep.
Because, our brains just went there.
Yeah.
And now we are over a year later.
Yeah.
We're in the 60s for our episodes.
Wow.
Well,
Sometimes it's a struggle to come up with a topic.
sometimes, yeah.
But for the most part, some of the topics have just come jumping out at us.
Because it's you just keep yourself aware to what's going on around you. And also the sermon often triggers things that we should do. I definitely want to do one on the Great Commission. But this contentment, I think we may have talked about it earlier in our podcast, but it's never a bad thing to come back around to topics after it's been a year or so. And we might have new slants on it or new insights into it. And so that's just
that which leads you like the first. I'm just looking at things that you're talking about. I'm going, like this. 1 Corinthians 7:32-35. That's your other verse that you've got. So I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord, but a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife, and his interests are divided.
And the following verses actually just flip that. And so there is one that's specifically about a married woman and an unmarried woman and things like that. He's not saying, ooh, they're bad because they're like considering a positive about being single.
Yep.
He's just like, hey, here's a positive about being single.
It
doesn't mean that having your concern or your interests divided and concerns about the Lord and your spouse are a bad thing. They're a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Because God created marriage. So he knew, and he created the foundation of what it should be. So he knew that there was a cord of three, that it would be the husband, the wife, and God. Right. So he knew there would be a divided attention, so to speak. And it's ordained. But as a single person, we don't have to.
We don't have that. No.
And that's okay.
It is.
And it doesn't mean if we thrive in it and embrace it, it doesn't mean that we're saying anything negative about married people or marriage or downplaying marriage and kids or trying to ruin all of Christianity through our enjoyment of being single.
And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this ministry, because at first it was just having the events and stuff like that. Evidently, God had a bigger plan. He says, no, yes, the events are good. And we still have to get the website up, and we just have
5 minutes. 5 minutes. If people want to know what my part-time job has been like, I just got a full-time check. So that's how my part-time job is going.
And that we only have Sundays because we're busy the rest of the week with work stuff.
God knows what we need, and he knows financially what we need, and he knows when we'll need time to put more practical on the ground stuff for this. Right now,
he says, this is the time I've given you right now. We need to develop our audience.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting. I remember one speaker one time, it wasn't a Christian thing or anything, but he's just saying, let me just find this answer to this question. Said, imagine that every day you got $86,400
every day.
But they wouldn't carry over. You had to use them that day.
Did you have to use the whole thing every day?
Yeah, you can't carry any of it over.
So
you would have to be very specific and conscious about using the money.
As if you didn't use it every day?
It was that, and it's gone. There are 86,400 seconds in a day. We have one day to use them. And when the day is over, the seconds are gone. You can't carry them over.
That's a lot of seconds.
And even though technically once you live the second, you can't get that second back. But the idea was really like,
how are you doing any time?
Because it's like, if you had all this money, you would figure out how to spend it. You wouldn't just be like, oh, well, a lot of times you would just be like, I figure out how to spend this money and hopefully wisely. But like, we have this time that God's given us. Are we going to spend it being like, oh, yes, this is what I'm getting. Can't be too much else. So I guess we'll just have to live it here, or woe is me. Why am I not married? Why does nobody love me? Or are we going to say, hey, God gave me this day. This is the day the Lord has made. In it, I will rejoice and be glad in it.
I have a thing about what he is saying there, because there are some seconds that we are sleeping, we can't help it.
And sleep is good. Sleep is good. And spending it on sleep is not a bad thing.
The next thing I am just going to buy a brand new great big bed.
So it's just, I just thought it was interesting because we would see things differently if it was money, but we somehow think of time as just whatever. It's actually more important than money in a sense.
And
So I guess it's interesting. It's Matthew 6:33. We have got Jesus, but seek first getting married and having kids. Right?
is that what it says?
That must be what it says. Oh wait,
What translation?
that might have been the wrong translation. That might have been like the bad translation.
That's a bad
So
translation.
it actually says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And again, we're not saying prosperity gospel, give and then God will give you what you want. What it's saying is that if you first seek God and heaven as your destination, like everything else that comes to you will be a blessing. You're not going to see it as a need, as what you deserve, or anything like that.
Therefore, do not worry. So Matthew 6:31 is actually a good place to start with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For after all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will have worry of its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
So just finishing off, I think, the podcast with that is just, if you're finding yourself like complacent or just content, this is the recommendation from Jesus. I don't think we can get any higher than that.
I think the verse that Pastor Justin used today is also a really good one, where Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
So both those verses work well. And I think what happens though is we bear ourselves under a burden of our own making.
Yes.
And yeah, God can help us with that. But I think we can help ourselves by not giving ourselves that burden.
Yeah.
And then the other things that come with life, those are the burdens that God should be dealing with, like just things that happen with life that you can't help. I think God expects us to do what we can, in a sense.
For those of you who are praying, God, give me a husband, maybe you could change the prayer to, God, help me to become the kind of person another person would want to be with.
Show me what you want me to do today in my singleness.
Yeah.
It said at the end
Throw
of
away
that story,
those stupid prayer list.
even at the end of that verse, it said, like, don't worry about tomorrow's got enough to deal with. And those are the two things that we're supposed to be looking at, I think. Today, in the moment that we can affect, and the future that is to come. Those are the two places we're supposed to have our sights set. So hopefully some of the things I've said have resonated with you, and you can see maybe within your heart, you can see discontentment, you can see complacency, and you can see contentment, because sometimes we can have all of those things. Depends on what we feel like we have control over and want control over. And so definitely within our relationship status is where we can definitely
Stop
have
being a control freak.
either complacency or discontent that can definitely reign. So releasing that burden that is unnecessary to be toting around with you will really free up your life.
And it can be a difficult thing to let go of these things because we've held on to them for so long.
They feel normal.
But you can pray for God to help you to release these burdens, to not have them be such a center of your life when it's really supposed to be God who is your center.
So I guess facing, like, God is the one who will grant you the things that you need. And we're supposed to focus on today as the day we can affect, and the day of his coming, the last day, are the only two things we need to worry about. Everything in the middle, it'll come when it comes.
It's gravy.
So that's our episode on contentment. And
I hope you're content with our episode.
Yeah, I really hope that you're content and not just complacent. So hopefully we should put a poll after it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and hope you have a good week, and we'll see you here next time.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this discussion on contentment in singleness. I hope the insights and scriptures shared today have encouraged you to embrace where you are in life with a heart full of contentment. Remember, being content doesn't mean you stop dreaming or hoping for change, but it does mean living fully and joyfully in the present moment. Don't forget to follow us on our social media to stay updated on our upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep seeking joy in every season of life and live your single life to its fullest.